Welcome back to Tarot by the Bay. I'm David. Okay. The news is rather distressing today between Christy Nome trying to set the table for the suspension of habeas corpus, fighting amongst the Democrats and the Republicans about the handling of Democratic lawmakers trying to inspect an ICE facility and the charges that they were leading a riot against ICE agents when the physical evidence doesn't seem to support that. To the GOP advancing one of their budgets out of committee that would be cutting health care and Medicare for millions of Americans. Nothing I really want to read on. It's distressing. And I think it's distressing because it just feels like the GOP's dark energies are advancing. And maybe I just don't want to read on that one and get confirmation on it. And if I read on it and don't get confirmation on it, I'm wondering at that point if I'm wish casting. So I kind of just want to let it sit and develop longer before I read on it. And heck, even the reading I want to do tonight, I don't really want to do, but it's like the less of all evils. And that's on a book coming out saying that many of the cabinet secretaries in Biden's cabinet in 2023 and 2024 were saying they were Biden was being shielded from them. The implication being that Biden, they might have seen some signs of mental weakening in Biden. Maybe not dementia, but something along those lines. And this might explain why there was this big push to have Biden only be a one-term president and to step down from running for re-election. That's kind of what I want to look at. I want to look at the energy around those closest to Biden and why were they shielding him from cabinet members, as this book seems to claim. In some of the quotes, Jill Biden was on The View last week, and she said the people who wrote those books were not in the White House with us. They didn't see how hard Joe worked every single day. He'd get up, he'd put in a full day, then at night I'd be in bed, reading my book, and he'd be on the phone reading his briefings, working with staff nonstop. Well, that could very well be true. But, when you're 80, when you're about 80 years old, one of the counterpoints in this article was you could get 4 to 6 good hours a day out of him. But after that, he wasn't as sharp. His guard was down. And you weren't getting the best that he had to offer. It's an argument for having a younger president with more energy. That's what I want to look at. So let's take a look. I want to look at the energy around the people close managing Joe Biden's agenda during the last couple years of his presidency. What were their biggest concerns with the 46th president of the United States? Okay, this will be for entertainment purposes only. Let's see what we can glean from that. Foundation of the reading is the Seven of Coins. The evaluation, assessing the value. What it's kind of like they're looking at it's like, what's the best, what can we get from this plan? What's the best that we can do with this? And what was the challenge getting, so they're looking at how do they get the best out of the president of the United States? What's the challenge with it? That when he's not at his best, that's going to be exposed. So they were trying to keep something under wraps. They didn't want everybody to know something either about his health or the value of his contemplations. And underneath it all is the King of Wands. Why were they monitoring his time? Why are they monitoring who sees him? What were they trying to prevent from getting out? And the King of Wands is the decision maker, the king who takes action on it. It could be that they're trying to protect his reputation as a decision maker, or they realized kind of like that article was saying, he was good for about 4 to 6 hours a day. He could be the King of Wands for 4 to 6 hours a day, but not a full day like we could with a younger president. And this is not to slam on anybody's age. The dude was in his late 70s. You don't have the same energy as you would in your 60s or your 50s. Nobody, I don't think anybody would say that Joe Biden's presidency, he would have the same vigor that Bill Clinton would had, or Jimmy Carter had when he was president, or Barack Obama. Those were all men that were younger, and you have more energy. Heck, I'm almost 60, and I certainly could tell the energy difference between myself at age 40 or age 50 versus age 60. So I understand where they're going with it. It's not an insult on Joe Biden. It's just an acknowledgement of what happens to us as we age. In the past, you got the star card. He's... You can say what you will about Joe Biden. He had a long, successful, storied career in the Senate. He was vice president of the United States, and he came in and he beat Donald Trump head-to-head in an election. Great reputation coming in. The current situation when they were protecting him is the Hermit card. So now, again, looking at the value that they can get from him, but trying to hide something. The Hermit's his ability to lead and go forward versus retreating. It's almost like, maybe this is one of those things where he was good for a certain period of time and, he needed more rest or something along those lines. But it's kind of an exposure and an exposure. There was something that they didn't want exposed. It involves his ability to take action and lead. Overarching energy is the Three of Wands. Waiting for your ship to come in. It's another thing of action. It's about planning. And maybe that's just it. As he gets tired, his strategic planning decreases because he doesn't have the energy to see all the scenarios that could come out of a decision. Basically, I've heard a saying that from one general. It said, no good ideas ever occurred after 2 a.m. And so there's no sense in staying up all night brainstorming, because between 2 a.m. and 6 a.m, nothing good's going to come anyway. So you might as well go home and get some sleep. You're better off sleeping, resting, and coming back than trying to power through something. And maybe that was the case with Joe Biden. There was only so much he could do. And then as he got fatigued, his ability to play the tape all the way through the various scenarios decreased. Lesson to be learned is the Ace of Cups. I do think that the people that were managing him were doing what they thought was in the best interest of Joe Biden, the country, but more like Joe Biden, the legacy, the star card, in wanting to protect that. And they may have been quite fierce in their protection of him. Outcome is the Six of Cups. Was it naive to do that? Was it a gift to do that? In retrospect, it's hard to say. They probably had good intentions with it. But when you're keeping the truth away from his cabinet, are you really serving the country? Or are you trying to protect the legacy? Let's throw one clarifier. Let's see. Knight of Swords. I think they felt like if it got out that he couldn't do a full day, there would be a rush to change. But I think that's what ended up happening anyways. Because the cabinet couldn't get a hold of him, that led to the push to say that Biden wasn't capable of doing the job anymore. So It would be one thing if they were doing that and convinced him to be a one-term president. You know what I mean? It's like, okay, he's going to be a one-term president. We're going to try and nurse this guy all the way through so that he can be the most effective president he could be for the 4 years he's in there, or the last couple of years that he's in office. But it looks like they tried to do that with the thought that he would run for election again. I'm understanding more and more why Nancy Pelosi was pushing for Biden to step down. I'm starting to understand why interviewers were asking him if he still had the energy. George Stephanopoulos. Stephanopoulos was clearly getting information from other contacts that he had, and he was challenging Biden with it. Now, my question is going to be, was Biden aware that his staff was limiting his access to other people? Was he aware of this? It could very well be from Biden's perspective. They were helping manage things, and him thinking, yeah, I can still do this. He might still think he could still do it at that point, when kind of what the his staff might really be saying without saying the words is, you can't. You just can't. Did Joe Biden think he could do it? What did he more to the point, what did Biden think was going on during these last 2 years with his scheduling? Okay. 9 of coins, and the Hanged Man, and the 4 of cups. What did he think was going on? I think he felt he was doing the job. Let's see. We've got a woman here of wealth, power, and means, crossed with the Hangman, looking at things in a new perspective. Not hearing what you want to hear, not feeling what you want to feel. I almost want to say this is Jill Biden. Seeing Joe and not liking how things are going. This just might be, and I don't know if I'm getting how Joe Biden was feeling during that. I'm getting how Jill Biden was feeling about that. She was hearing things she didn't like. And I think she felt like Joe was being thrown under the bus. But it's like the people, well, even in this article that I was just quoting down here, the people who wrote these books didn't see how hard he worked. He put in a full day, then at night. So I think what's happening here is that I'm getting the Jill Biden energy. She thought that these people weren't looking at the contributions her husband was putting in. She's not happy about that. And I've told you in the past that when I've read on Joe Biden that, Jill Biden was livid when people did this. All the cards, all the energy she was livid, and you're lucky that she wasn't the type of person that was given presidential immunity, because I don't think she would have been very kind to how she would have treated the people who she felt betrayed her husband. In the past, you got the devil card. But I don't think this is being demonic with Jill Biden or anything along those lines. I just think that this is the type of job that just absolutely consumes you. You can never give enough to this job. You just can't. It would consume you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and you still wouldn't have enough to ever satisfy the requirements of this job. The devil and the Lover's card. Current situation, the Lover's card. She saw the hard parts of the job, but she also saw the strength of the job. How hard the job could be on her husband, on anybody with it, but the change that it could make if you do it. The yin and yang of the presidency. She did see that Joe Biden was exhausted. She's defending her husband. She doesn't like what's being said about him. But honestly, she could see he was exhausted. And if anybody could see that Joe Biden was exhausted, it's going to be his wife. Now, she may feel that he's still able to do the job, but she's going to defend her husband. She absolutely is. The lesson to be learned is the Page of Cups. To be really honest, she's biased. I don't think, because of her emotional attachment to him, I don't think she was a fair arbiter of his ability to do the job. She can't. She's too emotionally tied with him. She's not detached. And that's fine. I mean, it's his wife. It's his wife. Out comes the death card. I wouldn't be surprised if at the end of the day she talked with him and said, it's not worth it anymore, Joe. You know, he made the decision. He made his phone calls. But it wouldn't surprise me if she was the one that convinced him to do that. Now, I'm going to visit this Page of Cups card again. It said, you know, she may not have been able to see it because of her love for him. It could also be for her love for him that she recognized that maybe it was time to hang it up. I could be wrong on my initial interpretation of this. But I will say this. She will never, ever, ever publicly support the removal of Joe Biden. I don't think she likes how that situation was handled. And she would never betray the trust of her husband. She's not going to come out and say, yeah, you know, it was time for Joe to hang up. That's not who she is. She would never do that. Okay? So all I'm saying is that when I'm saying, you know, with the Page of Cups, she's not the most honest arbiter because she's emotionally involved with it. All I'm going to say is it's true. That part I think is true. And that's the part why you will never hear her say that those people that said he couldn't do the job, because she felt he could do the job. But I think she also probably talked with him that it was time to hang it up. Because I think she also knew that what the job required and what he was able to deliver didn't align. The devil card versus the lover's card. That doesn't mean that she didn't think that, you know, when he was there, he wasn't giving it his best effort. He wasn't putting everything he had into it. It was just that probably quietly, just between the two of them, if you could read her thoughts, and when she saw her husband, you know, working late at night after an exhausting day, she probably really longed for the day that he was no longer president of the United States. That's kind of where I'm going with it. If she were to watch this video, she would never, ever agree with me on that. She might agree that she looked forward to the day that Joe Biden wasn't president, but she would have said after his second term was over. That kind of thing. I do wonder if she was concerned that the job would shorten his lifetime. She at least gets to have him for a longer period of time and better quality time. So I don't begrudge anybody for that, for wanting to spend time with their spouse. Okay. Spirit, anything else you want to share with the whole Biden cabinet situation? Little four-carder. Ace of Swords. Interesting. I'm wondering if that's with Kamala Harris here. Empress. The World. Hangman. Look at all those major arcana in the Tower. I think two things come to mind that come with this one. He got to be the kingmaker. If he wasn't going to get to have his second term couldn't be completed, he was going to get to nominate who would replace him. When his term was done, he got to be the kingmaker. And he chose the person that he felt would make the difference. would look at the job with a different perspective. He chose Kamala Harris. That was kind of like his, if you guys don't trust me to do this, and if I decide I'm not going to do it, then I'm sure as hell I'm going to cement my legacy with who I choose. Joe Biden is fiery. He may have to nap more often. He may be older and his energy is down, but the energy that he has right now at 80 years old, he's as fiery as he was in his 20s. He just can't get it as hot and maintain it as long. That's when he was talking about the story, like if Trump was in his high school, he'd have pulled him behind the building and beat the crap out of him. He wasn't kidding. When he said that, he was not kidding. That's who he is. God bless him. Thank you very much for watching this video and supporting my channel. I appreciate it. This reading is for entertainment purposes only, but I hope you found it insightful, and I'll catch you on the next video. Take care.